welcome to Rock, Paper, Swords, the historical action and adventure podcast. My name is Matthew Harfey.
And my name is Stephen A. Mackay.
And we're both best-selling historical fiction authors, and together we chat about all things historical and anything that could fall under the banner of action and adventure in books, film, TV, and games.
Oh, and we also talk about rock music from time to time.
Each episode, we're going to cover different aspects of history, from the quirky to the almost unbelievable. We'll also talk about writing, not only with each other, but also with guest authors. And on today's episode, we're going to focus on two things that our characters often come into contact with. One that gives life, and the other that takes it. The first is something that's close to my heart, as can be seen by my ever-expanding waistline. Food.
If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world, said J.R.R. Tolkien.
Ah, well, he was a wise man. I'm not surprised.
Very wise.
I'm not surprised it was Tolkien that said that. And for a moment, I thought you turned into a wise man.
A poet.
A poet, yeah, poetic. Well, the second thing that we're going to talk about is something that our readers will more readily think of when they pick up one of our books, not least of which because these things often appear on the covers of our books. And I'm talking about weapons. We'll chat about some of the common weapons used in the early medieval period of our books and what weapons that we actually own ourselves. But first, let's talk about food. In historical fiction, food and drink is often used to evoke a sense of time and place. Even action and adventure heroes need to stop and have a bite to eat every now and then. And as everyone knows what it's like to taste and smell food, describing what characters are consuming is a wonderful way to transport readers. And as the food and drink people ate and drank in the past is often quite different from what we can find nowadays, it can really conjure up the sense of a different alien time. But using food in historical fiction is not without its pitfalls, right, Stephen?
Correct. Take potatoes.
Potatoes?
I don't know if anybody's read the book Taliesin by Stephen Lawhead.
Oh, I've read some books by Stephen Lawhead, but I haven't read that one. But I know
he's quite a big author. I think I read this particular series when I was about 13 or 14. And he's
a very good writer. I think very good. Anyway.
I don't know now because I haven't really read them as an adult for a while.
Neither have I, actually.
Well, when I read them when I was younger, I really, really loved them. But this particular book, Taliesin, it's set in England.
It's Arthurian England.
Yeah, but it's not even medieval. It's before medieval times. So it's ancient times. And he has them eating potatoes. So
he's American, isn't he, Stephen Lawhead?
I think he must be, actually.
I think he's either Canadian or American, but he's definitely not from Britain.
Well, I mean, we all know, well, we don't really, do we? Unless you're a historical fiction author or a fan. Nobody really knows this, but potatoes were not around in England until about 1586 when they were brought over from America.
This is true.
If you're reading a historical fiction book set in ancient times in England, or Roman times or whatever.
Or any time before 1586.
Yeah, exactly. And they're eating potatoes, then it's going to throw you straight out of the scene. Potatoes, as Sam Gamgee said famously.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that straight away made me think about, when reading Lord of the Rings, it feels very historical. Obviously, it's fantasy, and it's written by J.R.R. Tolkien, who was really knew his stuff, but he did throw in potatoes, and I think he did it on purpose. So he's got potatoes and he's got rabbits and different things that I just think probably he did it on purpose to say this is obviously fantasy. He knew,
I never thought of that.
Potatoes didn't exist in Britain. So when he talks about, Middle Earth being kind of like a fictional version of some ancient Scandinavia or Britain or whatever. I mean, because potatoes come from the New World, as you say. So
that's a good point. I never thought of that before, Matthew. Well done.
Thank you. I'm full of great points like that. So there's loads of things that came over from the New World. It's just interesting. So
there's another one in my own book. Well, it's not in my own book, thankfully. But when I was writing, I'm sure it was Wolf's Head I was writing, and I had a rainbow trout in it. Somebody catches a rainbow trout and I'm enjoying this rainbow trout. And my friend Billy told me, no, actually, they never had rainbow trout in this country. Again, it was brought over from the New World. So
That's
was
funny that
brown
you
trout over here.
So it's funny you should say that, but I remember reading, I'm not going to name the author because they're still around and I know them, but I read a book by someone set in the 11th century, and they mentioned a grey squirrel in England. And of course, grey squirrels famously brought over from America as well. They didn't have grey squirrels in Britain until, I don't know when they were brought over, but they are American as well. So basically all of these species, loads of species of animal and fruit and trees and flowers and all sorts of things have been brought over from either from Asia or from the New World. But if it's from the Americas, of course, because if it's from Asia, you could say, well, potentially, possibly somebody could
the
have
Romans might have been there,
brought it over or something. But like spices and things, and rare spice or herb or something. But when you're talking about things that we know actually come from South or North America before the 15th century, it's not happening. So basically, there's all these things, and anything that's before the whenever it was, like late 15th century, wasn't it, when Columbus and then the Europeans went over. I'm not going to say discovered America, because obviously that's a great point of contention, and some people would say, but the Vikings were there earlier.
The Africans, I read yesterday somewhere.
Well, maybe, but the Vikings definitely were over in the north of North America, sometime around 9th, 10th century, something like that. So it's a possibility that somebody brought back something, but some of these things we're talking about, I think potatoes come from South America, so there's no chance.
But that's, you bring up a good point there. Received wisdom would be that potatoes were brought back in 1586 or whatever, but perhaps the Vikings were there earlier, who knows? And we're talking about rabbits and hares. And you mentioned this other day, I don't really know anything about rabbits or hares, but apparently they were, until recently, it was thought that they were brought here by the Normans, but they've found that they were probably here with the Romans in the 1st century.
This is
rabbits,
true,
I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, so it's true. So I've been very careful in all of my books, which are set in the Dark Ages or the early medieval period, not to mention rabbits, because I think there's definitely no written evidence of them existing. There's lots of drawings and things of hare. So hares were definitely much more common.
Yeah, they're native.
And I think the reality is that if rabbits had escaped from captivity from Roman farms or whatever, they breed so quickly that there would have been thousands of rabbits everywhere, millions of rabbits.
Famed, for breeding quickly.
So I personally think it's probably true that they didn't really have many or any here before the Normans, because I think otherwise people would have written about it and mentioned them.
Well, the source I read said that they were kept as, the rabbit was kept as a pet, and apparently they know this because they found its own poop in its digestive system. So I don't know how they found all this.
So there were rabbits here, but they reckon they were just pets of the Romans.
Yeah, and they know they were a pet because they were eating their own poop, so they must have been kept in a cage or a hutch.
Okay.
Which makes sense, perfect sense. But then I read another source that said apparently all rabbits and hares eat their own poop, because that's how that's how they get their nutrition. Well, I found it extremely interesting.
I knew that guinea pigs do that as well.
Well, I never knew that.
We've had guinea pigs.
I mean, I've had dogs that eat their own poop in the past, but I think that's just so they don't get around for pooping in the carpet.
But guinea pigs do it as well, and I believe, I know guinea pigs are from South America as well. So we're full circle.
Right. So,
and if you go to Ecuador and places in South America, or I think in Peru as well, but I'm pretty sure in Ecuador and places like that, which may be Central America, but anyway, around there, where they've got, I'm kind of making up now, this kind of half remembered information from I've heard, so I could be wrong. So anybody who thinks I'm wrong, you can tweet us or
I'm sure they will.
Comment on Facebook. But if you go to certain countries in South or Central America, I think probably South America, you'll find you can buy guinea pigs in the supermarkets, like frozen guinea pigs or whatever, to eat, because they eat them. They are a staple food in certain South American countries. So you'll find them like people eat rabbits. People used to eat rabbits a lot in Britain. And when I lived in Spain years ago, when I first moved to Spain in the 80s, and still now, I think rabbits are very commonly eaten. And a traditional Spanish paella, which is very famous, is not with all the fish and everything. The traditional one is rabbit and chicken meat in the rice dish of the paella, which is delicious. My favourite.
I was going to ask you, you've eaten rabbit then? I've never tried it.
Oh yeah, loads of times.
Yeah.
So in Spain, it's really common, and I've had paella with rabbit many times. Yeah, it's good. And you can eat hare. Of course, people used to eat hare a lot in the UK as well. So one of my dad's favourite things when he was younger, he said they used to get jugged hare, which was a thing. But I think it's just one of those things that's fallen off of the radar. People don't eat hare or rabbit now.
Well, they're too cute.
Just because they're too cute, but they're tasty. So something else that came from the New World that I was researching a little bit earlier was, and again, is a staple in the European diet and something that people, and actually is in the movie version of Lord of the Rings, one of the Peter Jackson movies, is tomatoes. So tomatoes, so I know I was saying before about, them eating potatoes. I don't think it's mentioned in the books, but there's definitely a scene with the king of Gondor, father of Boromir and that lot, eating tomatoes. But yeah, tomato again comes from South America. And
I remember him eating those actually, now that you say that, because he's got it all dribbling down his chin.
Yeah, it's very memorable. And it's interesting because the whole thing, so the word tomato, I was looking this up, actually comes from, I guess it's from North America actually, because it's from the Aztecs. I think they're from Mexico, and Mexico actually is North America, isn't it? I think, but I get confused with the geographical things. But yeah, Mexico is part of North America, and then you've got Central America, and then you've got South America. Yeah. Anyway, but from the Americas. But the word tomato, I can't remember where it's from. It comes from the Aztec word tomatl, which then in Spanish became tomate, which was taken over back over to Europe. And I was looking, if I can just find the thing that I was looking at earlier about the history of the tomato. There was some interesting stuff. They were originally, they were domesticated as plants, for food in America by the Aztecs and whoever came before the Aztecs, and eaten widely. And then they were brought back over to Europe. But for a long time, they were only used as ornamental plants, and they were actually put on like tables as like ornaments because they're so sort of pretty.
Yeah. So the tomato is the kind of flower.
Yeah, the tomato would be like the sort of centerpiece or whatever, because people thought they were poisonous, because they're actually from the same. It's interesting because I was reading about all this. They're from the same. They're part of the belladonna family, and so is the potato. So is the potato, and apparently the potato greens or bits of the potato can be poisonous.
Right. And
so are the greens of tomatoes. Apparently they've got different things in, which I can't remember what, tomatine, funnily enough. But anyway, yeah, so they have got bits in that are a bit poisonous. And then on top of that, apparently the tomatoes have got such high acidity content that when they were put onto pewter plates, the lead leached out of the pewter and people actually got lead poisoning. And so people did get ill after eating tomatoes. And so for a long time in Europe, they stopped eating them, and they were called, they knew them. I'm trying to find the name of what they called them. I think it's called something wolf apple or something like that, because people thought them as poisonous.
Well, belladonna certainly features in my books.
Yeah, so it's also wolf peach. Yeah, it's the botanical name. Botanical name is Lycopersicon esculentum. It translates as wolf peach because it was round and luscious, and wolf because it was erroneously considered poisonous. So there you go.
And yet wolves aren't poisonous.
No, but no, this is true. But wolf's bane is. But
I suppose, all right.
Yeah, so I think they thought they were all that same sort of, so they're from the deadly nightshade family. Yeah. So so they were brought back in like the early 16th century by Cortes. He discovered them growing in Montezuma's gardens. He brought seeds back to Europe. But yeah, ornamental curiosities, and the original one's probably not red either.
Oh, but that's what I was wondering. They're probably green or some
yellow, apparently. Yeah, the green ones apparently they've got more of this poisonous stuff in
them.
Right,
okay, so don't eat those ones.
Apparently not, but I've eaten green tomatoes in Spain. They use certain types of dish they use green tomatoes in, so and you get these fried green tomatoes in the States in certain
that's a movie.
States of America. Yeah. So I don't know if now it's the case. Anyway, but interesting thing. But again, so if you read a book that's set before 1500 or so, and it's not set in the time of the Aztecs or the Incas or somewhere in South America or North America, then it's wrong. There are no tomatoes.
It's bollocks, basically.
It's bollocks, yeah.
But
it's funny when you think about everything we eat now. Chips and tomatoes are, potatoes and tomatoes are two of the biggest staples. Say eat something healthy, you say I'll have a salad, got tomatoes in it.
Yep.
Eat something stodgy, I'll have some chips, potatoes. So it's like everything that we eat pretty much is lots of eat. It's interesting. I mean, it was interesting seeing that apparently it became more and more popular, the tomato, when pizzas were invented in the late 19th century in Italy, and suddenly the tomato became more popular as well.
So you need it for the sauce, don't you?
You need it. You need it. Yeah, that's right. Well, we've talked about how tomatoes were thought to be poisonous and could potentially kill you with leaching lead out of pewter plates, but it's much more likely in our books that our characters would actually be hurt or killed by weapons. So let's move on and talk about some of the most common weapons in the early medieval period.
Quite sexy, aren't they?
They are quite sexy. Do you think that's why we end up putting them on so many of the covers of our books?
Exactly. I mean, they're not really sexy, but they're sexy.
Sexy. I like it. So
fun.
Yeah, nice. So the seaxs or the seaxs, I don't know how it's pronounced really. I used to think it's pronounced seaxs, but yeah, S-E-A-X.
Yeah, I just assumed it was sax.
Yeah, I think it is probably sax. Yeah. And so, is it true that that's where the name where the Saxons get their name? Is it from that single-bladed or single-sided blade knife that they carried?
I don't know.
Because I have read that. I've read that.
But yeah, I've read that as well.
I think it's probably true, possibly true.
I think it's possibly part of it.
Yeah, it does make you wonder
where they came from.
Is it chicken and egg thing?
Yeah.
But are the weapons named after the people or the people after the weapons? I don't know. But the sax, yeah, it's the sort of straight, long, or I suppose not always long knife, but sort of
they're quite short. Knife. I think they're kind of in between a dagger and a short sword, I suppose.
Yeah. I suppose you get the longest ones are lang sax, which are a bit later in history, a bit after ours. I think I mentioned one or two a couple of times just because I like the idea. And they're basically like a short sword. I think they found one in the Thames. There's a famous one. I think is it Bearnorth's sax, which is about, I don't know how long. I'm just trying to think about. Probably the blade's about 40 centimeters long or something. It's quite long. So it's sort of like it's bigger than a knife.
Yeah, remember, we can't see you.
I know. That's why I'm sort of doing it for myself, to be able to see if I can, see how long it is. So about this book, okay, I'm going to have a look now because I find it's found in 10th century. It's not found in the century.
It's past my period.
Yeah, it's past my period too. But I like to do some proper research. I don't like to just research the 1 minute of time that I'm involved in.
I do.
I know you do.
Oh, I honestly do. Joking aside, that's the way my brain works. I can only research, because I forget stuff. So I just research the period that I'm kind of writing in.
So to digress from the sax thing, although I have got some information about the sax that I'll tell you in a minute, but to digress from that, I agree with you. I'm similar, and I've actually learnt to my chagrin, I think is a word that I could use to describe it. But yeah, I've learned that it's actually not always great, that because when you're writing a series of books, I'll study the moment that I'm writing about, and then in the next book discover that the king that I mentioned actually has children that I'd forgotten to include because they didn't get mentioned in the history until a couple of years later when they've grown up and then usurp the father or whatever.
And you can't go back and change it then?
Can't really go back and change it, but you can sort of try and work people in. But yeah, I've basically what I'm saying is my lack of knowledge of the history is not always great. Well,
there's too much to learn, so I think as long as it's a good story, this is probably for another day, but this is obviously how we both work. Yeah,
we definitely need to. That's definitely something for another. So jot that down. We'll set that aside. And we'll have a proper conversation about that another time. But yeah, so the sax that I was telling you about, the sax of Bagnoth or Bagnoth. It was found in the Thames. It's also known as the Thames seaxs. It's from the 10th century, single-edged knife. It's found in the estuary of the Thames in 1857. It's now in the British Museum. And it is 72.1 centimeters long with a width of 38 millimeters.
So it's just over 2 feet.
Yeah, and it's nearly a kilo. I think that includes the handle as well. So I think the blade is probably about 50 centimeters long, something like that. But yeah, it's a pretty nice looking thing. Yeah, the blade's 55 centimeters long, and it's got runes on it. So it's a really nice weapon.
Actually sounds similar to one I've got, which is based on Sting from the Lord of the Rings movies.
Well, yeah, okay. So is that
in length anyway?
Isn't Sting a short sword?
Yeah, exactly. So it's about, well, remember it's for hobbits, so to a hobbit I suppose it's a bastard sword or something because it's so small. But it's got runes on it. It's quite a nice wee piece. I got it really cheap on eBay about 20 years ago. But it's about the same length and it feels kind of really comfortable to hold. Obviously, I'm not an expert in using swords or anything like that, but it feels like it would do you well in a fight.
Have you done any sword fighting?
No, not at all. Especially not with that one because it was cheap on eBay. It's actually incredibly sharp.
Right.
Usually when you back then anyway, I don't know about now, but it used to be if you bought them from a reputable dealer, they would have blunt blades.
Yeah.
So most of the ones I've got blunt blades, but this one in particular is actually razor sharp.
Wow.
And it would really do some damage if in the wrong hands.
Yeah. So I haven't done any proper sort of like reenactment style or fighting with replica weapons from the period, but I did do some fencing way back when.
Right, okay.
Probably I was thinking it must have been after I started writing the first of my books, but probably about 20 years ago, maybe just under 20 years ago or something like that. Yeah, we used to go to Bath, the University of Bath, and joined like a fencing club there and did like the intro bit and then stayed for a few months, probably about a year I was doing it. But it was great fun, but it was incredibly tiring and really, I mean, I learned how shit I was at fencing, but it was definitely interesting, and you do learn about parrying and stuff like that, and how
feet movement and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and how important it all is about the distance and timing and meter and everything.
And balance.
But very different from actual real fighting, I think.
Yeah, especially with a heavier sword. That's much more delicate, I suppose, fencing.
It was really useful, actually, for the writing. I found, even though the styles don't properly equate to the styles of fighting that people, would use in the time of our books.
It gives you an idea.
Definitely gives you a feel and an idea of sort of the movement and the speed and the amount of physical exertion that it is.
Yeah. I don't think people realise just how hard it is to actually fight for that long, holding these really heavy weapons.
It's not so much because even the sabers that you use in fencing, they're not heavy. I mean, they're a few hundred grams, but it's the stance. You have to be sort of semi crouched, and so your legs are bent all the time. And obviously you're concentrating a lot, and it's very, very fast, explosive movements forwards and backwards. And you have to wear protection because even though you're only face mask and you're wearing multiple layers as well, protecting your body. Because even though, and a glove, you have to wear a glove because if you get hit in the hand or in the, you really hurt. So even though they're blunt, they're blunt and they're thin blades and everything, you're not going to lop something off with a fencing saber, but you'll break someone's finger, or if you whack it. And
but even a sword like that's really light, after you've been holding your arm out for 2 minutes, it's going to feel as heavy as anything.
Well, yeah, probably. I mean, the fights normally don't take very, very long, but for me it was just the I mean, I'm not a skinny guy and not very fit, but it was the forwards and backwards, moving.
Yeah.
And the thing, and all the muscles that ache afterwards, the legs. Your legs are just knackered, and you just
drenched
in sweat because you're wearing all these layers. But great fun though. It was good. Definitely worth doing.
Since we're called Rock Paper Swords, I should probably mention that Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden was an Olympic fencer for Great Britain.
You should mention that. You
So
should.
not only a
Because,
great singer, he's also excellent at fencing.
well, all I've got to do now is, apart from obviously become a millionaire and sing better, is to learn to fly commercial jets as well, and then I can just pretend to be Bruce Dickinson.
I thought you were actually going to start singing "Run to the
could.
Hills" or something there.
I could run. No, I'm not going to do it. I can't. Run to the Hills is too high. We used to do it with my band, actually.
Right. Okay.
Years ago. We used to do Run to the Hills, and we used to do Hallowed Be Thy Name. And Hallowed Be Thy Name is amazing. And I do remember a friend of mine coming to see us play, and afterwards put on Facebook and said that we performed Hallowed Be Thy Name better than Iron Maiden, which I can tell you right now is not true. But
I'll bet it wasn't true. Nothing against your band, but
definitely wasn't true. But we did do it justice. I don't think there's many pub bands that would do.
It's impressive. That would definitely make you sit up and take notice.
Yeah, we did the Trooper as well. We did the Trooper, and I had the big flag, and I'd waved, and I'd do the whole intro bit and do the flag and everything. So pub, we'd be playing like in a little pub, and maybe 20, 30 people watching us, and we'd be
waving
like,
the flag.
Full on,
Good stuff.
It's in my life, and I'll take yours too. Do the whole thing. It was great fun. Good
Very
days.
Historical song there as well.
Absolutely, and funnily enough, it's all about the Charge of the Light Brigade, isn't it? And I've been researching a bit of 19th century cavalry just this week, but I'm not going to go into more detail. But
Secrets, is it?
Not secrets, but we'll spare that for another day.
Okay.
So moving on to, we talked about the seaxs. I think we talked for quite a while about the seaxs, and you've got a short sword. You said, I mentioned that on the cover of some of our books we've got weapons. I've got on Wolf of Wessex, I have an axe, which is a very big replica of a very big Viking axe. It's probably not 100% historically accurate, but
this is what I was going to ask you. If I remember right, that's a double-headed axe.
No, it's not. No, it's a single. No, it's.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of John Gwynn's. I'm thinking of one of John Gwynn's books.
Well, no, because I would never go for the double-headed axe. And
that's what I was wondering if it was.
No.
Period correct.
No, it is. It's sort of period correct. It's probably. I think it's about 100 years later than I'm writing about, but it's still a Viking axe, and it's based. The head shape is based on a Viking axe. If people have seen it, the actual the haft of it, the wooden haft, is carved with some runes.
Yeah,
and
I remember
the actual
that,
head is designed with some sort of swirly, artistic Viking style Norse. I can't remember, like knotwork and things. And that was done by a guy called Chris Bailey, he runs the Facebook group for the Bernard Cornwell fan club.
BCFC.
Yeah, and I sort of was chatting with him. He was doing some axes. I saw him doing these axe modifications for people, like making them look really nice and sort of changing the varnishing them with different colors and carving runes and things into them. So I contacted him and said, would he consider doing something? And I did that first with him. We went through a long process. I've got a whole blog post describing it also. Maybe we can put that in the notes, actually, if it's in the show notes, if someone wants to go and look at it. But he has a whole description of how he went about that with an interview with Chris and everything. It was really good. And I didn't know at the time if the publishers were going to allow me to have that on the cover, because I put forward to them the idea that I'd have this axe on the cover, and I think originally they were a bit snooty about the idea. I don't think they liked the idea.
They maybe liked to use their own cover artists.
I don't know. It's more the fact that they just were, I just don't know. They just were like, axe on the cover. I don't know. It's going to, anyway, but then they sort of came up with some sample cover ideas and they weren't great. And I sent them a photo of the axe. And then the next thing I know, boom, it's all done. It's like, great. Yeah. My daughter took the photo. I was holding the axe in front of a green sheet in the hanging over the shower rail in the bathroom. My daughter
Real professional stuff.
Real professional stuff. I sent them that, and then the next thing, boom, they do their magic and put a nice background and the font and all the rest of it. And
I suppose it sounds generic describing it, an axe against a background of it's trees, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the thing is, it's the character, the character in the book, Dunstan. It's basically that's his axe. I describe it in the book, and so the runes have a significance and everything. I never go into that detail in the book, but it does say there's runes on it, and it's all.
It's actually a really good cover, especially in the hardback. I think it works better in the hardback.
Yeah, I think it looks good. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good, but it does sound generic. There's so many books on Amazon now.
Yeah,
it's just a big axe and maybe even just a black background. But readers seem to like those as well. Some of them sell really well.
It tells you what you're going to get, doesn't it? It's like you know what you're going to get then.
But you should anyway.
Yeah. What have you got any weapons on any of your covers?
I'm trying to think. The Rise of the Wolf has obviously Robin Hood with his longbow, and all of the Forest Lord books have got arrows.
Oh yeah.
And the funny thing about that is Wolf's Head, when it came out, just had a generic kind of fantasy style arrow on the cover, and I was told that was wrong, and so all the books after that had proper period correct arrows. That the guy that did it, that helped me, was called Chris, but I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know who you mean.
Chris,
starts with V.
Merin or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. Sorry,
he's
Chris,
Dutch,
if you
isn't
hear
he? He's
this.
a nice Dutch guy.
He's a really nice guy. He actually sent me some bows and things like that.
Oh wow!
Because he really enjoyed those books.
I can tell you. I can tell you a little secret now about that. I was very jealous when you posted that you got this stuff from Chris, and I actually added an archer into the Cross and the Curse in the hope that he'd send me something, and he never did.
Well, if you hear this, Chris, Matthew's desperate for some of your arrows. I've actually got them behind me on the wall. I don't think you can even see them if we took photos or anything. You can over there. But yeah, I've got those arrows. I don't think they're actually the ones on the cover or anything, but yeah, so that's the covers on my books. But no, I don't have anything that's kind of, I don't want to say simplistic, but that I suppose is what it would be. I don't have anything like that as simplistic as that on the cover.
None of your Druid books have got they've got animals, haven't you? Got animal on the... Yeah,
there's a stag on Song of the Centurion. The Northern Throne has got ships and stuff. But the new one, should I reveal the title here?
You can do. Go on then. You can.
Well, it's called Wrath of the Picts, and the front cover has got a Pict holding an axe. So there you go. There is one of the Druid novels will have a axe on it. It's not the centerpiece of the cover or anything, but it is an axe on the cover.
Oh, that sounds good. So I was just thinking that I think one of my covers, which now has been changed, so my covers have changed, so they were changed by the publisher a while ago.
I actually really liked your original.
I did as well.
It was brilliant.
I did like the originals. I was looking at them the other day and thinking, I'm not sure if I like the new ones better. I think they're really good. They're really artistic, the new ones.
Yeah. And
I think they fit really well together as a group. You know, they look really
nice. The other series a bit as well.
Yeah, but I don't think they're as impactful. I don't think they quite grab you quite as much as the original ones. And the original ones had Matt Bunker, the reenactor guy, who had all his own, he's got all his own gear, period accurate, and one of them has got him on the front with a spear. So I think it's
I remember that.
I think Warrior of Woden is the one I think he's standing.
I remember the big white fuzz.
Yeah, I think it's on that one. Anyway, it doesn't matter now because the covers are all changed. So, but yes, that's with the spear. But it does bring me on to the spear. So the spear and the shield would be the two most common weapons really used in the early medieval period. So they're not the sexiest things to talk about when writing. I find that most writers end up writing about axes and bows and swords, obviously. But the spear, if you actually went to a battle, probably 90% of the people would have spears and not much else.
I think there's good reason for it. I've actually watched, when I knew we would be talking about this, I watched some YouTube videos of a couple of guys that know their stuff. HEMA, it's called. I don't even remember what that stands for. European Martial Arts, Historical European Martial Arts. That must be it.
Yeah.
I'll put those in the show notes as well. A link to these guys' channels on YouTube, and they've got experiments with a guy with a spear fighting against a guy with a sword, basically, and then they try different configurations, holding a shield, and the other one holding a shield, and it turns out the spear is actually a really, really deadly weapon. So I mean, it's not cheap. You could even just not even have the metal point. You could just, harden it by, burning it in a fire or whatever, And fighting somebody with one of those is more effective than a sword in a battle situation.
Yeah. I saw actually a guy today that was looking at it's from Schola Gladiatoria, I think.
I think that's the same one.
I
I've
can't
obviously
remember
watched the same.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I can't remember the
Was
guy's
he
name.
he's kind of Scandinavian?
No,
Or is it the bald guy?
Yeah, bald guy, like
that's
an English guy. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but him. We'll put him in the show notes. Show notes as well. Sorry,
he's very good.
Name checking him, but he said the numbers is basically one spearman can fight two swordsmen quite accurately, or sort of effectively.
It wasn't him. The video I'd watched, they were trying different things where the spearman just had a spear, and the swordman would get a shield, and they try different types of shields and stuff like that. It was really, really interesting. But it just goes to show you that if you were facing a shield wall with a dozen men holding spears and shields, and you were trying to come at them, you really need something special to get past them. It wouldn't just be one guy attacking them with a sword. He'd soon be beaten.
Yes, I think that's the thing. It's like you need to kind of. I think when we're writing fiction, it's often you need the shield wall to be broken or somebody to make an inroad because just having lots of people shoving and grunting and poking spears at each other, really, it doesn't get very. It's not very exciting, no. So you can kind of describe that grind for a bit, but eventually you need something to happen. So somebody has to fall
somebody
over,
has to get poked in the eye,
or somebody runs away, or somebody, the king gets poked in the eye, or something happens, and it changes the flow of the battle. Which I guess in real life is how the battles. That's something does happen that causes them to crumble. I think often it's like the morale.
Exactly.
Crumbles.
Somebody gets a fright and they maybe turn, and his pal then gets a fright because he's running away, and they just all end up running away and they all get stabbed in the back.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think as soon as your morale's gone.
Yeah.
So the morale here definitely isn't gone. I'm still full of morale, but I think that we've probably said enough about weapons
hang on,
for today. Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I did, because what I was thinking about, if these spears are so good and so cheap compared to swords, why don't we, as authors, use our characters or have our characters walking around carrying them all the time? And the simple answer is because they're huge and heavy and completely unsuitable to travelling around with.
Well, I think my characters probably do carry them around, but you just don't describe it very often. You don't just sort of like.
No, I've not. Mine don't really have staffs, and I did think, am I doing this right? Then am I been writing this wrong all this time? But those guys that we're talking about actually cover it in some of their videos, and they are so heavy and unwieldy. You wouldn't want to walk around, travelling from, hundreds of miles as they did back then, or on horseback or whatever, with this massive sword on your back. So I think it's probably
massive sword or spear.
A spear.
You said sword.
Oh, did I? Sorry.
Yes, you're really confusing things now. Yeah.
Well, you can put a sword on your side and your hip and the belt, and you walk around and you don't even know it's there, really. Whereas a spear, which is going to be taller than you. It's
going to be long, yeah. I mean, they're going
to be
very
unwieldy.
Yeah, they're going to be long. And as you said, they can be created quickly and cheaply as well. And I guess, it's probably not like you'd have a beloved spear. You could probably pick one up if you need to in a battle situation.
Yeah, cheaply enough. And also, if you went to stay in a tavern overnight, where would you store your spear? Things like this. You would, and if it was a beloved spear that you had to carry around, would you really want to leave it somewhere else? Because the rooms aren't going to be high enough for a spear. But
I wonder. Now we're talking about it. I've never thought about this before, but we could have another conversation for another day about taverns as well, and whether there were actually taverns in the early medieval period. But that's another whole question. But
or if they did, what they were like. Yeah.
But but what about, because spears are effectively just a piece of wood with a bit of metal on top, why wouldn't they just remove the metal point and put that in their backpack and then just leave the wood, and then when they get somewhere else and they need to prepare for battle,
just get another spear made up,
cut down a piece of ash and create their own spear haft, and then just stick the point on.
That's a good point. There would probably be lots of staves in their carts and whatever, that there were the wagons that were following the army.
Yeah, well, you could just go to the forest and cut one down if you needed to, but yeah, you could get a stave. I like your pun there as well. That's a good point. Yeah.
God, I never even noticed it, Matthew. That was hilarious.
It was up there with the best of your jokes, which is why I noticed.
Thanks very much.
So
made me sad now.
So I think. So do you
sorry.
think do you think that's enough for today for weapons?
Yeah, I should probably mention that my druid carries a big staff around with him.
Ah, there you go. You probably should.
Don't want to forget that, because he's like nearly 7 foot tall, and in the book I described the staff as being about the same height. So I had to come up with some kind of. He just puts that on his horse basically, and I'd imagine he's figured out some really clever way. I don't actually think there is a historically accurate. Well, there will be somehow, but we don't know about it. I don't think that that they would attach these kind of things to horses. There would have been something. I think the Chinese had various things for it that we know about. But yeah, my druid has this big staff and he carries it everywhere with him.
They sort of sling it down beside the side of the horse, like under their leg or something. Is that how?
Yeah, and I saw some pictures today. It's kind of slung over their shoulder, almost on a strap, and then they hold it in with their foot, another strap on their foot or something. So I suppose there was ways. This wouldn't
holding it vertically, holding it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And this wouldn't pass on to us because it would all rot away. So it'd be hard to find in the archaeology this piece of wood with a bit of leather or something wrapped around it. So, but they obviously must have had something like that.
Yeah, well, you get the people that are carrying spears and like flags on poles and stuff now on horseback. They've got like a foot, like put it something in the stirrup,
so
and they sort of
similar.
hold it in that to take the weight of it basically on the stirrup, I guess.
Well, they never really had stirrups as well, though, as far back as, you know.
Oh, not when you're not the druids, not the time of the druid. No.
It's kind of. I suppose some people must have. Some clever person around then would have. Just never get passed around everybody.
Yeah. No, you just reminded me. Yeah, so I'm kind of writing in different periods, and some periods have got stirrups, and some haven't. So in the 7th century, I haven't got stirrups, even though some parts of the world had stirrup, but not in Britain, or at least archaeologically, we don't know that they did have. And then later on, by sort of 8th, 9th centuries, they did have. So.
And your cowboys as well, I'm sure they did.
And the cowboys, yeah. And by the 19th century, they definitely were. They definitely had stirrups then, yeah. Which brings me on to the final questions that we ask each week, the regular questions. The first one being, what have you been watching and reading this week?
What have I been watching? SWAT. Season 5. Yeah.
SWAT.
Yeah.
Special Weapons and Tactics.
That's the one with, I think his name's Shamar Moore, I think.
That sounds very, very action and adventure.
Oh, it's, very good 80s style action and adventure. A little bit of romance. Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. Have you never watched it?
No, never watched it.
It's really good. It's a bit like the A-Team, but slightly... I mean, it's not really like the A-Team. The story's completely different, but it's that kind of daft action where people don't really get hurt that much. There's not really much blood, even though folk are getting sniped in the eye and things like that. It's you could easily watch it with like a teenager or something anyway. It's very good. It's fast-paced. I really like it.
Okay. Well, there you go. You heard it here.
Yeah, go out and watch SWAT Season 5. I had to pay for Now TV, which annoyed me because you're paying for Netflix and Prime, and you have to pay another tenner to watch something else. But I suppose a tenner's fine for a whole season of shows. It's well worth it.
We could have a conversation about that, but about how many services you need to subscribe to be able to see all the good TV. It's very annoying.
Whereas you could just buy Kindle Unlimited and read all of my books.
And mine.
For £8. There you go. And yours as well.
And mine too.
Well, what good value is that? That's amazing.
I think everybody should get on Kindle Unlimited and just read all our books.
I never realised all yours were on it. That's good.
I'm pretty sure they are. Yeah, I think so. So I've been watching this last week Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV series.
And that's on Disney Plus, isn't it?
That's on Disney Plus, which
another one you have to pay for. But I got it free because I got a new phone this week.
But I have to say that although you have to pay for it, it is pretty good value. They are putting out good stuff because they keep putting out new movies and things. So I think the latest Doctor Strange movie has come out. It's only been in the cinema like 2-3 months ago, and it's already come out. Good. So every couple of months, they're bringing out big budget new movies that have just been in the cinema. So you feel, and these original series and things. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, if you're a Star Wars fan, worth watching, but there's so many things about it that annoy me that I could go into in great detail about.
Well, don't mention that, because I was kind of hoping Disney Plus might sponsor us.
So I won't say that. Disney Plus is amazing. Let's get Disney
And
Plus
Now
to
TV,
sponsor us.
Sky.
And in fact, all of the TV streamers are amazing. Anyway, yeah,
Well,
maybe another
value.
time we could talk about. We could have an whole episode about Star Wars as its action and adventure, and then we could discuss.
Well, we could, but I prefer Star Trek.
Oh, really? Is this true?
I just wanted to create some conflict there. I don't really like
So you
Star
heard
Wars.
it here, everybody. Yeah, you heard it here. If that's the case, we might have to end. This could be the last episode.
It's maybe just because Picard is a handsome bald man, like myself. I just identify with Captain Picard more.
Yeah, could be.
Than the Wookiee.
But, I really don't like Star Trek very much. So we found somewhere where we collide. Okay, on to the reading then. What have you been reading?
I haven't really been reading much, Matthew. I haven't even been reading your book for a change. I'm sorry. So it's been pushed back again. But I've started to read Robin Young's Brethren.
Ah.
I read it, oh God knows, it must be about 10 years, probably even 15 years ago. And I remember I really liked it. And it's another one of those covers where it's got, I think it's got a shielder and a horse and action and stuff. A good cover, especially back then. It was less generic. So I'm reading that again because we're going to have her on, aren't we?
We are. We're going to be interviewing Robin very soon. And Robin, who also publishes under the name of Erin Young, now as she's doing modern day thrillers. So lots of historical fiction as Robin Young, and now very successful book, and I think the beginning of a series and TV series coming.
TV series as well.
Yeah. So we can talk to her about that. It's not been made yet, but she's I think she's a producer or executive producer on it, and I think it's proper greenlit and it's going ahead. And the new book, I think it's called The Fields. So I haven't read that, but maybe that's something I can try and catch up on before we interview her.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew about the TV show, but she's a good writer. I mean, Brethren is definitely a good book. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, great. So I'm looking forward to having her on to talk about all of her writing. Yeah. So I've just started a book by a fellow Head of Zeus author, and it's called Jason. And it's by Mark Knowles, and it's a retelling. It's the second of a series of books retelling the Jason and the Argonauts myths and legends or story, whatever. And
it's a good story. That definitely is worth.
Great story. It's early days, so I can't really say much about the writing, but it all seems good so far.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that sounds good.
The first book in the series is called Argo. So the first one's Argo that came out.
I've seen that on Amazon. That rings a bell. That sounds like Glenn Iliff's series.
Yep.
Where he redid Odysseus' story, and it was an excellent series. Very much worth reading.
Right. So, final question. What have you been listening to?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because about 2 hours ago, I turned YouTube on and there was a new Megadeth song on. It's called We'll Be Back. The way I read that sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It makes me wonder if it's anything to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger now. It's an excellent song. If you like your old school metal, you should enjoy this new Megadeth song. So it's definitely worth checking out. It's interesting action-oriented video as well.
Oh, okay. Maybe it is based on old Arnie and Terminator.
Until I actually read it out loud, We'll Be Back. And the kind of similar accent to Arnie.
It's very
similar muscles on me.
You're exactly. I often mistake you. I mistake you for Arnold Schwarzenegger often. I've been listening to something like if that's you said just released, very, very new Megadeth song. I've been listening to something from I think like 1969 or something. I mean, it's super old. But hey, I've listened to it before, but I've been listening to King Crimson, In the Court of the Crimson King. Have you heard?
Oh, this is the one with the cover with a huge nose.
Yeah. Prog rock, crazy prog rock.
It's an amazing cover. It's very, amazing. Very eye-catching.
It's an amazing album. It's a great album. But I don't know. I listened to that because of I mentioned before I was listening to the Rock on Tours and they were interviewing the drummer. Is it Bob Bruford? Bob Bruford, I think.
Was he related to Bill Bruford then, or is that the same guy? Is that who
Or is
you
it
mean?
Bill Bruford? Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's not Bob. Maybe it's Bill Bruford. I probably just got it wrong, but that's okay. He'll forgive me. He'll forgive me. Yeah, Bill Bruford. Yeah, sorry, Bill. Yeah, Bill Bruford, drummer.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was listening to him, and it was great. You can edit that out, make me look better. Look, I'll say it again.
It made me look good. I know who he is, and I've never even believed that. I've listened to.
Damn you. Anyway, yeah, so listening to that is great. He's an amazing percussionist.
I remember listening to it years ago because I like prog rock, but Jethro Tull is kind of my thing. Don't really remember enjoying King Crimson that much, but I'll have to go back and re-listen because obviously tastes change over the years.
Some of it is a little bit too much. Some of it is a bit out there, but it's definitely worth a listen. So anyway, that's it, I think, for today. I think that's the episode. So just before, you've got something you want to say before we wrap up?
Just before we wrap up the episode, I wanted to mention a giveaway. So we really hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are and you'd like to support us, please let your friends know. Spread the word by sharing our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter, and if possible, leave a review on the platform where you're listening to us. If you do any or all of these things, tag us in them or send us a message or email to let us know, and we'll put your name in a hat to win a signed book of your choice from each of us. The giveaway will close at the end of July 2022, so please get in touch before then so we can put you into the draw.
Sounds like an offer too good to miss.
Too good. Well, it's books from me and you.
I know. So yeah, we can
best prize imaginable, really.
Well, for people listening to this, it's probably a pretty good price, hopefully. So that's it for today's episode, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Please let us know if you have any questions or things you'd like us to cover in future episodes. We'd love to hear from you. You can contact us on Facebook page, which is facebook.com/rockpaperswordspodcast. We're also on Twitter as @rock_swords. You can find out more about my books at matthewharvey.com and Stephen's books at stephenaMckay.com. And we're both also on Twitter and Facebook as well, so we'd love to hear from you. So drop by and say hello. The theme music that you heard at the beginning is written and performed and copyrighted by us. And until next time on Rock, Paper, Swords, it's goodbye from me, Matthew Harvey.
And it's goodbye from me, Stephen A. Mackay.
And remember, whatever action and adventure you have going on in your life, be kind, stay safe, and happy reading.